4,000 years ago, this spice was worth more than gold. Wars were fought over it. Empires rose and fell chasing it. Today, over 200,000 tons are produced each year, yet the process remains surprisingly ancient. This is how tree bark becomes the world's most popular spice. Sri Lanka produces 90% of the world's true Ceylon cinnamon. The island's humid climate creates bark with the highest oil content on Earth. Each morning, fresh bark arrives from plantations less than 50 kilometers away. Speed matters. The bark must be processed within 48 hours of harvest. A single tree can produce bark continuously for 40 years, harvested every 2 seasons through a technique called coppicing. The trees are never killed. Workers cut them back to stumps and new shoots grow within months, ready for the next harvest. But not all bark is equal. The difference between premium and industrial grade comes down to one measurement: the thickness of the inner bark. True Ceylon cinnamon inner bark measures just half a millimeter thick. That's thinner than a credit card. Cassia cinnamon, the cheaper variety from China and Indonesia, has bark 3 to 4 times thicker, with a harsher, more pungent flavor. The incoming bark contains something that must be removed before any processing can begin: the rough outer layer called the cork. This outer layer has no flavor and would contaminate the final product with bitter, woody notes. The tools used for this step haven't changed in centuries. Brass scrapers, passed down through generations, shaped perfectly for the curve of cinnamon branches. In Sri Lanka, bark peelers are called kurundu workers. Many families have practiced this craft for over 300 years. A skilled peeler processes over 500 sticks per day. The motion becomes automatic, almost meditative. Once the outer cork is removed, the branches move to the most critical station in the entire facility. This is where the magic happens. The inner bark must be separated from the wood without tearing, without breaking, in one continuous sheet. The window for this step is narrow. Too early and the bark clings to the wood. Too late, and it becomes brittle and cracks. The bark releases with a soft pop, sliding off the branch like a sleeve being removed from an arm. Inside each tube hides the prize: the paper-thin inner bark that contains all of cinnamon's essential oils. Those oils, concentrated in this half-millimeter layer, create the flavor that humans have craved for 4 millennia. Now the tubes must be processed quickly. Within hours, they'll begin to curl on their own as moisture escapes. Workers split each tube lengthwise and lay the strips flat, preparing them for the rolling process. The inner surface gleams with a slight sheen. That's the essential oil, waiting to be released when ground or heated. Before rolling begins, workers perform a crucial quality check. They snap small pieces and smell them. Aroma tells them everything: oil content, freshness, whether the harvest timing was perfect. No machine can replicate this test. The highest grade, called Alba, has bark thinner than paper and an aroma that fills an entire room. Alba represents less than 2% of total production. Most goes to gourmet markets in Europe and Japan. The rolling stations are the heart of the operation. This is where flat strips transform into the iconic cinnamon quill. Each quill contains between 6 and 10 bark strips, layered inside each other like a telescope. The outer strips are longer and coarser. As layers build inward, the strips become thinner and more delicate. This layering creates the signature cross-section pattern. When you slice a cinnamon stick, you're seeing each individual layer. Workers roll toward themselves using their palms, applying even pressure along the entire length. Uneven pressure creates gaps. Gaps trap air. Air causes oxidation and destroys the essential oils during storage. A perfect quill feels solid, with no soft spots, no hollow sections. The layers are fused as if they were always one piece. Each roller produces between 150 and 200 quills per shift. Quality matters more than quantity. Now comes the transformation that gives cinnamon its curl. The quills move to the drying rooms. The drying process takes between 4 and 5 days. Temperature and humidity must stay within narrow ranges. Too hot, and the essential oils evaporate. Too humid, and mold destroys the entire batch. As moisture leaves the bark, the layers contract. The quill tightens, curling inward like a fern unfurling in reverse. The chemistry happening inside is remarkable. Cinnamaldehyde, the compound responsible for cinnamon's flavor, concentrates as water evaporates. Fresh bark contains 70% water. Finished quills contain less than 12%. That concentration intensifies flavor by nearly 6 times. Ceylon cinnamon contains up to 4% cinnamaldehyde by weight. That's one of the highest concentrations of any spice compound in nature. After 5 days, the quills emerge transformed. The color has deepened from pale tan to warm cinnamon brown. The texture has changed too. What was once pliable now snaps cleanly, releasing that unmistakable aroma. Grading begins immediately. Quills are sorted by length, diameter, color, and the number of complete layers. The grading system has 7 official categories, from Alba at the top to Continental at the bottom. Length determines price more than any other factor. Quills over 42 centimeters command premium prices in European markets. Shorter pieces, anything under 8 centimeters, won't be sold as quills at all. They're destined for grinding. But before grinding, these premium quills face one more critical test: the coumarin analysis. Coumarin is a naturally occurring compound in cinnamon that can damage the liver in high doses. Ceylon cinnamon contains almost none. Cassia cinnamon contains up to 1% coumarin, over 200 times more than Ceylon. This difference matters for daily consumption. European regulations limit coumarin in food products. Ceylon's naturally low levels make it the only cinnamon that meets every standard. This is why Ceylon cinnamon costs 4 to 5 times more than Cassia. You're paying for purity and safety. With testing complete, the premium quills move to packaging, but most of the production here is destined for a different fate. 70% of all cinnamon is sold ground, and grinding transforms good quills into something even more concentrated. The grinding room is kept at exactly 18 degrees Celsius. Cold prevents the essential oils from volatilizing during processing. Heat is the enemy here. Friction from grinding generates warmth that would destroy the very compounds that create flavor. Narration: the first stage crushes quills into rough pieces about the size of cornflakes. Breaking down slowly preserves the oils. Stage 2 reduces those pieces to coarse granules. The cinnamon flavor in the room becomes intense, almost overwhelming. The final grinder uses stone wheels that turn slowly, crushing granules into powder without generating excess heat. This technique dates back to ancient Egypt. Modern factories have simply scaled it up. The principle remains unchanged. The powder emerges at exactly 60 mesh, meaning it passes through a screen with 60 holes per inch. Any particles larger than 60 mesh return to the grinder. Consistency matters for baking, where uneven powder creates uneven flavor. The finished powder collects in stainless steel hoppers. One hopper holds over 500 kilograms of pure ground cinnamon. Before packaging, one more quality check. The powder is tested for color using a standardized scale. Ceylon cinnamon powder should fall between values 6 and 8 on the color scale. Lighter indicates less oxidation and fresher product. The aroma is tested by a trained panel of 3 evaluators. They score for intensity, sweetness, and absence of off notes. Only batches scoring above 80 out of 100 proceed to packaging. The rest are downgraded to industrial use. The packaging hall maintains positive air pressure. Clean air constantly flows outward, preventing any contamination from entering. For bulk customers, powder flows directly into 25-kilogram bags. These supply bakeries and food manufacturers worldwide. The bags are heat-sealed to lock out moisture. Even 2% extra humidity can cause caking within weeks. For retail, the packaging lines run smaller. These machines fill 50-gram jars, the size you find in supermarkets. Each jar receives exactly 50 grams, plus or minus half a gram. Precision matters for regulatory compliance and customer trust. An induction seal is applied beneath the cap, creating an airtight barrier that preserves freshness for up to 3 years. Labeling happens at 60 jars per minute. Each label carries the batch number, allowing full traceability back to the original plantation. If any contamination is ever discovered, that batch number lets inspectors trace every jar, in every store, on every continent. But the factory doesn't just produce powder. Return to the premium quill station. Here, the whole sticks are prepared for export. Premium quills are bundled by hand. Machine handling would crack the delicate outer layers. Each bundle contains exactly 1 kilogram. The quills are counted, not just weighed, to ensure consistent quality per bundle. Natural fiber string ties each bundle. Synthetic materials can transfer odors that contaminate the cinnamon's delicate aroma profile. The bundles are wrapped in food-grade paper, then placed in wooden crates lined with wax paper. No plastic touches premium product. These crates travel to gourmet markets in 43 countries. Michelin-starred restaurants pay over $200 per kilogram. But cinnamon production yields more than just quills and powder. The factory extracts something even more valuable: the essential oil. Cinnamon bark oil sells for over $160 per kilogram. That's 8 times the price of the ground spice. Steam distillation extracts the oil. The process works because cinnamaldehyde evaporates at a lower temperature than water. Bark chips and broken quills fill the distillation chamber. Nothing is wasted. Every scrap contains extractable oil. Steam passes through the bark for 6 to 8 hours. The vapor carries the essential oil molecules up through the system. The vapor rises into a condensation coil surrounded by cold water. As it cools, steam becomes liquid again. But here's the magic: oil and water don't mix. The cinnamon oil floats to the surface where it's skimmed off. 100 kilograms of bark yields just 1.5 kilograms of essential oil. The concentration is remarkable. The oil is tested for cinnamaldehyde content. Premium grade must contain at least 70% of this key compound. This oil supplies perfume houses, pharmaceutical companies, and the food flavoring industry. A single drop can flavor an entire cake. The water left behind after oil extraction isn't discarded either. Cinnamon water sells to cosmetic companies for use in skin products. Even the exhausted bark chips find purpose. They're composted and returned to the plantations as fertilizer. This factory processes 92% of incoming raw material into saleable product. Almost nothing becomes waste. But efficiency isn't the only focus here. Quality control operates at every stage, with over 40 separate checkpoints. Metal detection is mandatory. Any product passing to packaging must clear detectors calibrated to find fragments as small as 2 millimeters. X-ray machines scan for non-metallic contaminants: stones, plastic, glass. The machines catch what human eyes cannot. Microbiological testing happens daily. Samples from every batch are cultured to detect bacteria, mold, or yeast. Results take 48 hours. No batch ships until testing confirms it meets international food safety standards. Third-party auditors visit 4 times per year. They arrive unannounced, checking everything from worker hygiene to equipment calibration. The factory holds certifications from 6 different international bodies. These logos on packaging represent thousands of hours of compliance work. But perhaps the most important quality control happens at the very beginning, selecting which plantations supply the raw material. The factory works with over 200 family farms. Each must meet strict standards for cultivation, harvest timing, and bark handling. Agronomists visit farms twice yearly, advising on soil health, pruning techniques, and optimal harvest windows. The best bark comes from trees harvested during the dry season. Wet season bark contains more water and less flavor. Trees are harvested at exactly 4 years old. Younger trees produce weak bark. Older trees develop woody, bitter flavors. This collaboration benefits everyone. Farmers receive guaranteed prices above market rate. The factory receives consistent, premium quality bark. More than 3,000 people earn their living from this single factory. For many families, cinnamon has provided income for generations. The work requires skill, passed down through apprenticeship. New bark peelers train for 6 months before working independently. The fastest peelers are celebrated. Annual competitions crown champions who can process 100 sticks in under an hour. Injuries are rare but possible. The brass scrapers are sharp. Workers undergo safety training every quarter. The factory provides housing, healthcare, and education support. These benefits keep workers loyal. Average tenure exceeds 12 years. As finished product accumulates in the warehouse, it awaits one final stage: the journey to customers worldwide. Forklifts organize pallets by destination. One pallet might travel 15,000 kilometers to reach its final market. Temperature-controlled containers maintain 20 degrees during ocean transit. Heat would destroy months of careful processing. From this single factory, cinnamon travels to over 70 countries. Every continent except Antarctica receives shipments. The United States imports more cinnamon than any other nation. Over 40,000 tons arrive on American shores each year. Most ends up in breakfast cereals, baked goods, and seasonal beverages. Cinnamon consumption spikes 60% during winter holidays. To meet holiday demand, the factory runs double shifts from September through November. Every worker who wants overtime gets it. But changing climate threatens this ancient industry. Rising temperatures stress cinnamon trees, reducing bark quality. The factory has invested in shade cultivation research. Trees grown under canopy produce better bark with less water. New drought-resistant varieties are being developed. The genetics must preserve flavor while tolerating drier conditions. Solar panels now cover half the factory roof. Energy costs have dropped 40%. Processing remains the same. Rainwater collection. Tanks supply non-production water needs. The factory uses 60% less municipal water than a decade ago. These investments increase costs, but protect the future. Customers increasingly demand proof of sustainable practices. 4,000 years of history, 200 farming families, 3,000 factory workers, all connected by this single remarkable bark. The next time you reach for that jar on your spice rack, consider the journey it represents. A tree grew for 4 years. A farmer harvested at exactly the right moment. A peeler's hands, trained for months, stripped the bark with precision. Rollers created the perfect quill. Dryers monitored temperature for 5 days. Scientists tested for purity and safety. Ships crossed oceans. Trucks drove highways. Also, you could add half a teaspoon to your morning oatmeal. That teaspoon contains over 100 flavor compounds, developed over thousands of years of cultivation and selection. Ancient Egyptians valued it for embalming their pharaohs. Medieval Europeans paid fortunes for a single quill. Portuguese colonizers fought wars to control these very hills where cinnamon still grows today. The Dutch monopolized the trade for a century. The British took over after them. Control of cinnamon meant control of wealth. Today, the trade belongs to Sri Lanka itself. Local ownership means local prosperity. The wealth stays where the work happens. Modern technology has improved efficiency, but the core process remains what it was centuries ago. Human hands still peel the bark. Human noses still judge the quality. Human skill still determines the grade. Machines can grind and package. They cannot assess aroma. They cannot feel the moment bark is ready to release. This is how tree bark becomes the world's most beloved spice. Ancient technique. Modern scale, timeless flavor. The scent alone triggers memories. Holidays at grandma's house. Fresh-baked rolls on Sunday morning. Mulled wine on winter evenings. Scientists have documented over 40 distinct aromatic compounds in cinnamon. Together, they create something no laboratory can replicate. The workers who made this possible will never meet the families who enjoy their product. But every quill carries their skill. Tomorrow morning, they'll return to the same stations, the same brass tools, continuing a tradition older than most civilizations. From the hills of Sri Lanka to your kitchen, cinnamon continues its 4,000-year journey, one quill at a time.